And we're back, and it's COMP397. It's winter 2016 semester, week 2, lesson 2, part 1 of our broadcast. And last week we kind of did a bit of a setup. No, I don't want to upgrade Java. Thank you. Last week we did a bit of a setup, and we talked about Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio. We used TypeScript. We used a bunch of front-end technologies to kind of build out our templates that we'll be using. And I'm going to do some of the similar stuff today, and we're going to kind of download and install Create.js, and which is our framework that we're going to be using to make our games for this semester. Okay, but first, what I want to do is I want to give you an assignment. And again, you don't know all the details yet, how to do all this stuff, but we're going to talk about it over the next couple weeks to help you get there. All right, so don't worry. I'm not going to leave you in the dust and say learn it all yourself. It's going to be me showing you how to do everything from the ground up. All right, so let's talk about this assignment a little bit. So if you want to join me online, you can find your assignment up on Dropbox. It's assignment number 1, the Dragon. One thing I should add there, I'm just going to edit that folder for 1 second, is I forgot to add an external document as one of the files you need. By the way, this external document is the same one I used for Game Programming 1, and probably going to be the same one I use for Advanced Graphics 2. When I need to. I'm going to include it here just so that way you have access to it. Just if you're in one program but not another, or somehow you're only in this course, as an example, you'll have access to it. All right. So we'll talk about it in a second. So it's up and ready for you guys to go. So what is this assignment that I talk of anyway? Well, it's called Document the Dragon. Right. That's what this assignment's all about. And it's a misleading name, and I want to talk about stuff that I want you to do and things I don't want you to do, like always, right? So I'm going to talk about stuff. Okay, so what is this thing? Let's look at it says use the Dragon site files provided on GitHub and the example code from class, which I'm going to give you, to create a choose your own adventure web game. All right, so what does that mean? So you have like a screen, and then it tells you, do you want to go left or right? And then what happens is when you choose left, whoosh, another screen comes into play and you go left, and then you give the person the story based on where you go. So it's almost like all you're doing is you're providing text on the screen. It's a text-based game, and all you're doing is you're shifting the screen around. So depending on what the person chooses, you provide the story for the game. Okay, that's what it's really about. So let's see that in action. So where do I get this GitHub stuff that I'm speaking of? Right. Well, if you go up on GitHub, and let's find this thing. And I'm not sure if I have it under Centennial College today or if I have it under the other one, but I will let you know where it is, right? So under Centennial College, if I find a repository called the Dragon, let's see if I have it there. I do not. You don't have to look under myself, under me, like my own repositories, which is /Steliopoulos. And if I look under repositories there and I go Dragon, it's called the Dragon, not Comp100 the Dragon. I do the same thing with Comp100 people, by the way, where all we did was a console game where we made the Dragon game on the console. This isn't that, okay? This is, you get the template for COMP397, and it says COMP2016 for another college right here. So you go into github.com / my last name, Steliopoulos, and you can go to the Dragon. Okay, so here's the Dragon files, and I want to show you what this looks like. So what does this look like anyway? Well, notice that it's Visual Studio. This is good. A Visual Studio application. That's what it is. So it's a project that you can run on Visual Studio, right? So let's download this thing, and I'll show you how you can use it for VS Code. And for people who are using Visual Studio, this will be just perfect for you. Just download it and double-click on the solution file, and you're good to go. And why did this just drop? Okay. So I'm going to download this file, and I'm going to put it on my desktop just for this one so I can show you what this looks like. So my desktop. Okay, and I'm going to unzip it here on the Mac. And let's take a look and see what it looks like. So here's my zip file, and here's the actual file itself. I'm just going to get rid of the zip file. And let's check this out. So I've got the Dragon. I've got to dig one kind of level into it because remember how Visual Studio itself, Visual Studio 2013, 2015, it partitions it so that there's an outer folder and then there's an inner folder, right? So the solution file, obviously I can't run this thing. It belongs to Visual Studio 2013 or 2015, whatever you want to use. Okay, if I double click the index.html, I get this. You're on a planet full of dragons, right? In front of you, you see 2 caves. In one cave, the dragon is friendly and will share his treasure with you. And then the other dragon is greedy and hungry and will eat you on sight, right? So which cave do you go in? Selena, which cave do you go in? You decide the fate of us all, right? Cave 1. All right, so she goes into cave 1. You approach the cave. It's dark and spooky. A large red dragon jumps out in front of you. He opens his jaws and he gobbles you down in one bite. He eats you. You're done. You're finished. Let's start over. Okay, good. And I want to go to cave 2, obviously. If you chose cave 2, it'll be like this. You approach the cave. It's bright and cheerful. A large white dragon approaches you and gives you his treasure, right? So nice and easy. Stupid, but easy, right? Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to give me back a dragon game, okay? Please don't do that. I've had dragon games like for the last 5 years given to me, and I've always told people, 0. I don't want you to give me a dragon game, right? Make your own story. And I mean, or choose your own story. Pick a story from somewhere else. Pick Star Wars. Pick something. Make it interesting. You know, whatever. And all I want you to do is, and when you make your own story, it's not going to just be this simple, like cave 1 or cave 2. Obviously, it's just 2 states, if you will, right? 2 screens or scenes. And you're not going to be using Impress.js. I'm using this as an example of what it's going to look like. So this isn't a template. This is just an idea of what the final product will be. Think about this as a client site. He has two scenes, and he goes, hey, kind of have this idea. I want to make this, you know, kind of choose your own adventure game online. And I've done it with Impress.js to kind of put it together, almost like slides. But I want you to make a game with Create.js, a different framework, and you're going to use a state machine to kind of have 2 different scenes. So when I click the button, I go to a new scene, and it gives me more information about my story, right? Okay. So what do I mean by this? So think about this as a bunch of decision levels, almost like a decision tree matrix. Think about this. You can almost think about this in a heuristic way, right? Almost like a brain pattern, right? So I'm here at the beginning. I have a choice. I can go either one way or the other, right? I can go left or right. And that's all you have in this particular game. You can go left, eaten, right, alive, and rich, right? Those are the 2 options. That's kind of really boring, and I want to have a little bit more options. So I'm going to ask you to make a total of 3 decision levels. So this is the green level is the first level, like left or right, is decision level 1, right? Decision level 2 would be if I go to the second cave as an example, I can also go left or right or have some other choices, up, down, back, forward, whatever, go through a gate, swim in an ocean, do something else. And it doesn't have to be a cave. It can be, you know, instead of a planet full of dragons, you are, you know, in an empty forest. And, you know, they're chasing you. They're chasing you. They've been chasing you for days. You know, I'm just making this up here at this podcast. Just like, they're zombie. They're dead. And everyone else is dead with them. Only you're alive and you're being chased. Which way do you go? Do you go in deep into the woods or do you go across the street? Which way do you go? I don't know. Deep into the woods. So you go deep into the woods, you know, and then now, okay, you're in the woods. You hear some noise ahead of you. You know, do you see what I'm saying? You make your own story. And then there's another decision level. So that would be this over here. Into the woods, there's another decision level. Which way do you go, right? And then finally you get to the point where it's your final decision. And there's 8 different outcomes, okay? So 8 possibilities. 7 of those are going to kill you, all right? Only 1 is going to make sure that you live and get the treasure, right? That's the game that you're going to make. There's no super duper graphics here. All I'm looking for is some background screens, some images that you can put on to give it a theme, okay? Please don't give me the exact same image every single time if you're going to give me images at all, and don't give me a white background. Okay, I don't want just it's almost like a slide. Here's your words, and then there's the next slide, and they're all the same white background, right? Please don't give me colored backgrounds. Here's the white background. Here's a green background. That's really boring too. Make it so it's your own. If you're going to make a sci-fi type story, make it science fiction like. Add some elements in there. Spend a little time. You got 2 weeks to put together this website. All right, so it's not going to happen in a second. It'll take some time to put it together, right? The technology behind this thing is one aspect of this whole assignment. But the other aspect that I want you to do is practice your game design document skills, because you're going to create a simple game design document for this one, right? So if you've already done it, no problem. It's going to be no problem for you. You probably already have your logo. You probably already have all that stuff. Reuse it, right? If you've already done a course with me before. If you don't have one, there's going to be some other requirements, right? And the second thing you're going to do is learn Create.js and create a simple, you know, state machine to move you from one scene to the other cleanly, right? That's what I want you to do. Why? Because in the future of iteration of your games, you're going to have a start screen, some kind of menu, right? Your game scenes, level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever many levels you want to make, and your game over scene, right? So I can't get there until I teach you this stuff, how to move around from one scene to the other cleanly, how to enable one and then stop the other one without the whole game crashing, right? So that's the kind of stuff we have to do. So it's going to be a bit of a journey, 2 weeks, that we're going to be focusing on state machine. And I'm doing it right at the beginning. There was a time where I did it right at the end, right? So I didn't hit this until like week 8, something like that, right? But the problem with that is if your main project is given to you week 10, that means you just learned kind of state machine and it's due week 14, you're in trouble, right? You don't kind of have a handle of how it works. You probably haven't practiced. You only have had it one time. I'm going to give you this assignment and 2 more to practice your state machine, how you can flow from one scene to the other. So by the time you get to your final project, you're ready to go. You know how to move from one thing to the other. So that's what I've learned over the last 5 years doing this exact project right here, right? So it's taken many forms, all right? So this is just the latest. Okay, so again, so you have 2 decision levels, and that's what the whole game is about. Typically, we used to use Impress.js. You're not going to use Impress.js. You're going to move into Create.js, which is the framework that we're going to be using for our time together here this semester, Create.js. Some people have suggested, well, why can't I use something like Phaser, right, which is a game framework, or Game Maker or something like that? Well, we're not here to use Phaser or Game Maker. We're here to learn JavaScript, TypeScript, and create our own games from scratch, right? So that's why we use Create.js, because Create.js gives them some libraries, but it's not an opinionated framework like Phaser. Phaser forces you to use their stuff the way they want it for it to work. Create.js, you can make use of it any way you like. And the great thing about Create.js is it's very Flash-like. So if you have any kind of Flash experience, it's gonna be familiar to you. You can use it outside of gaming, so you don't have to use it just for gaming. Phaser is for gaming. Create.js you can use for websites, right, and other things, right? So you can make advertising, ads of different kinds. You can make an interactive website with Phaser, with Create.js, all kinds of stuff. So that's why Create.js. That's why we're using Create.js. Okay. So let's go to some of the details. Now, I've broken it out into several different kinds of marks. So 18 marks for functionality, if you notice the balance here. 12 marks for internal documentation. Lots of marks for how you internally document your code. So 4 marks for site structure, how you organize yourself. 10 marks for external documentation, when you put together your external document. Some marks for version control, and even some for cloud deployment. So because I want you to deploy your site live, because it's a website, to the cloud. All right, so we're going to talk about how to do that, which is important to learn. On that, I would ask you, if you haven't done already, to sign up for Azure, Microsoft Azure. And we're going to try and go in there, and for those people who don't have me, and you're going to see that piece again. If you've seen it already, then I apologize. But I get everyone to sign up for Azure for the first time, because that's part of your requirement for this course. Right, so you're going to do cloud computing. In this course, you're going to learn TypeScript. You're going to learn state machine design patterns, JavaScript. It's going to be packed full of stuff you have to deliver, but you're going to be doing it every time. So every time you produce an app, you're going to be doing some kind of, using kind of the latest technologies, web technologies, to produce it. So you can, so from a takeaway perspective, because, I mean, how many of you are gamers? Very few, right? In the game program. So most of you are just regular, computer science, students, computer studies students. And you want to be able to take away something from this course other than just, hey, I learned how to make a game in Tom's course, right? It's not about that. It's about what skills I can take away so I can be effective. I can be an awesome web developer. When you come away from this course, and if you have a chance to take advanced graphics or one of the other courses that I do, sometimes I do emerging technologies as well. The great thing about that is that you come out with a good group of skills that you can use in any job, right? So it's not just about making games. Other good things, I have about about 50 or 60 videos just in this course alone. So if you go up on YouTube, and if you don't know me, all my videos up are on YouTube, and I've got, 700 videos or something. But there's a couple ways to reach me. And again, some people asked for this last time. I'm not going to go there because that'll kill my session. But let's do it over on this one. I'll go to YouTube. And if you know my first initial last name, you can put that in, or I think you can always put in Tom, my first name and my last name too. That might get you there too. Yeah, that might get you there too, and just redirects you to T and my last name. I'm a YouTube partner, so I produce lots of videos and all that kind of stuff. So you can certainly go up and see that. And there's always going to be some kind of playlist of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today. Like today, I also did some videos on iOS programming with Swift. So you'll see some of that there as well. But so if you go up on the playlist, you'll see it there, and it's your tool. It's not a replacement for coming to class, like I talked about before. It's just your tool for you to come around and use it as a backup. If you can't, if you didn't get it the first time, you can always look back and watch the videos and all that stuff. All right, so let's go back to this assignment here. So we got to talk about this a little bit more. So again, this is this broken out into different kinds of functionality, and each thing I've asked you to do has a bit of marks around it. So again, 1A, which would be each decision level will allow the player at least 2 choices, right? So you can't just go to a decision level and it's got like 1 choice. Go forward. That's not a decision level, right? Decision means you have to make a decision. What left, right, up, down, whatever. At least 2. You can make more if you want. I highly caution you against making this too complex. This little game that you're going to make. This can spiral out of control, and I will talk to you about this because it's like a puzzle, right? And I always try to caution people around puzzle games. This is kind of the first and last story-based puzzle game you'll make for me, because it can run you into oblivion. You'll never finish. And we'll talk about that. So 12 marks functionality. B, only 1 positive outcome is possible for the player, right? So that means you can't have 2 wins. Only 1 way to winning, and please don't make it random. Oh, man, I rolled the dice, and now today, the random outcome is you have to go through the forest this time instead of inside the castle. Make it fixed, guys and girls. Why? It's just easier for you, all right? Once you start playing with random outcomes and all that kind of stuff, then you may not get the results you want, and it could screw up your code. And for now, this is going to be complex enough as it is. Please don't try and do that. Someone will suggest it, and it's been done every single semester I've run this thing. Someone will go, can I make a random thing? Yes, you can, but please don't. I'm asking you. It's just going to be really bad. A state machine pattern, of course, we just talked about that, described in class to create separate scenes for each story node. All right, so that's worth 4 marks. Couple of options, like for example, you can allow the player to go back to the previous node or cross laterally to a node on the same level, right? So let's say, for example, you go into the forest, then looking forward, you see bright lights and you hear some sounds. Do you go forward? Go back where you came from? Oh, look, there's a thing over there. There's a thing over there. How many? You can give more choices to the player than just left or right. As an example, you can give the person an option to go back. It's just for you. So if you can structure your story the way you like. That's why I gave this option. It's not for extra points. Option 2. Or E, if you will, you may allow the player to find special items to help him win. Okay, so maybe your story would require the person to get a sword and a shield, right? And if he doesn't have a sword and a shield, or she doesn't have a sword and a shield, you know what? The warrior princess won't make it through, right? Even if they get to the final outcome, they'll still fail because they're missing some items, right? In the quest, right? You can do that if you want. Again, I caution you that option D and option E make your whole project more complex. It's going to add to the complexity of the whole thing. That's why they're options, right? If you want to challenge yourself, these are the options to challenge yourself, okay? Don't challenge yourself if it's difficult, right? If it's already difficult for you, try and do what I'm asking you, and that's it. Internal documentation, I've really put a heavy amount of marks on here, a lot, maybe more than I should. And I'll tell you what I'm really looking for here is from an internal documentation perspective. And by the way, this saves some people in terms of marking, right? And so please don't forget about it, is make sure you document your header. I'm giving you 6 full marks for documenting your program, just your header. Like you putting in like, my name is, and this is my program, and blah, blah, blah. And if you do that in every single, code file, you're going to get 6 marks. And that means like 0 functionality, you still get 6 marks, right? Okay, ensure your program uses contextual variable names, 2 marks. It's huge. And ensure you include inline comments if required. 4 marks, right? And also, here's the site structure piece. Ensure your project files are organized within an appropriate site structure, separating the view, which is your HTML document and your CSS files, and your game logic, which is your JavaScript and TypeScript files, okay? Make sure those 2 things are separate. I don't want to see your HTML and your JavaScript embedded within each other somehow or whatever. Keep it all separate like I'm showing you in class, okay? E, use TypeScript, all right? So I'm asking you to use TypeScript here. I'm giving you 2 marks for that structure, just to use TypeScript. If you choose not to, you lose 2 marks, right? Because you chose to use just pure JavaScript or something like that. Include external documentation for your program that includes the following, right? A company logo. Now, some people say, well, Tom, I'm not an artist. How can I do that? Use your name, you know, pick a some kind of image that you're happy with. Please don't steal somebody's logo and make it your own. Like, don't sit there and go up online and say, I'm Apple, right? And my Apple logo, that's me, right? No, it's not you. You know, make something very simple if you have to. It's just something, I call it like your signet ring, right, of power. This is the thing that tells me who you are, right? So it's something that I want in every single document and every assignment that you hand in for every course I ever do, right? So if you do it one time, it pays you back every single time you do a document. I'm going to pay you for it. I'm going to pay you again and again and again. I'm not going to just ask for it once, right? Okay, table of contents. That's pretty simple for the table of contents. A version history and a detailed game description. That's it. I don't need images. I don't need anything else. And you're getting 10 marks for this, for just putting together a design document for the first time. Remember, and for those people who are doing both this one and advanced graphics, right? This is like part one of a kind of two courses, right? Advanced graphics actually is the harder course, right? In some ways, because it has other things that we use as 3D instead of 2D. This is all 2D. Advanced graphics is all 3D, right? So, so then I start you off with the game design document here, and then you know how to use it there. If you're taking both, bonus. That means you're gonna do it twice, and you're gonna get paid twice. And we'll talk about the game design document. What is that? Well, it's up on Dropbox. I just put it up there for you, right? So if you've never seen it before, let's take a look at the document. And some of you may have seen it before. You might have seen it in Game Programming 1 if you took that with me. I use the same document all the time across all my game courses, right? So this is what it looks like. It's just a template. And I want you to replace it and make your own, right? So that means you put your logo here. You put your company name up here. Make a fake company name. Make, you know, if your name is Tom Inc. something, right? It doesn't matter, right? Make it your own. Tom Games. How about that, right? Whatever it is. If you're not creative, it's okay. But make sure that this is all filled out. The title of the document. What's the title of the document? If I was doing it, and if the dragon was my game, I would be called the Dragon. Play, you know, choose your own adventure game. Your game will not be the dragon. It's going to be whatever you make, right? It's going to be like, you know, Star Wars, an untold story, you know, whatever that you're going to make. You know, being chased by zombies at night. I don't know, call it whatever you like, right? And then any kind of subtitle, like for example, you know, like example, the document title might be Star Wars, an untold story, and then episode 1, right? And you might do like 3 episodes for the semester, whatever you want to do. Your version is the version of this document. And then the date, obviously it's not 2012, right? And you're going to put your name. When it says the author's name, don't leave that here. Sometimes I get it back and it says the author's name goes here, you know, kind of stuff. Please replace this with your name. Like, don't put your name, like your name, because I get that back too. I said, please replace this with your name. Someone put in your name, right? It's like, come on, really? Put in your name, like as in like, oh, my name is Tom. I'm gonna put Tom Sneopoulos in there, right? I'm not gonna put like, you know, your name. That's just funny. Sometimes people do it for, you know, as a joke. I don't take it serious. It bothers me when I see it because it's like, really? Come on. Obviously, the date of when you submit the document would be here. Table of contents. Again, you can set up your table of contents. A table of contents looks at each page and tells me where each page is. So if I say I want to have a version history, then table of contents, the first thing it'll say is version history, page 1, you know, or whatever it's going to be, and then so on. If people don't know, please look up table of contents if you don't know what it is. I've got weird stuff back sometimes, right? Like example, my table, I was a table, like literally a table, right, with stuff on it, right? Table of contents. I swear to you, you know, people just do weird things. Version history, I mean, do I expect you to write down each time you change something? No. I would do honestly, I would do a screenshot of your GitHub commits. That's all I want here. So put your screenshot of your commits here so I can see that this is you, right? And by the way, if you notice on my requirements for the assignment, right, for those people who, you know, who saw it and didn't quite see it properly, on GitHub here in my in the assignment, it says, for GitHub services, it says a repository must include your code and be well structured. So 2 marks. So that means if you put your code on GitHub as backup and that's all you do, that's 2 marks. You lose the other 2 marks that you need for all your commits. If you use GitHub properly, Like you actually use it for version control. So every time you make a change, add a feature, get up out of your chair, you know, whatever, all those things, that's when you should make a commit, right? I should see a series of commits on GitHub, all the changes and every time you save, you know, or whenever, however many you choose, but definitely more than one, right? I've seen GitHub, I've seen a link to people's GitHub and it's just one. It's initial commit. Okay, here it is. It's Tom. I don't use GitHub. That's what you're telling me. And I just put this on and I just trying to get some marks. So I put it on so I can get 2 marks. So you'll lose the other 2 marks, which is, if you include all your commits in there, then you get 2 marks. And this is the big one, which is deploy your site live. I'm paying you for this, right? And then in a cloud service of your choice, you can choose Azure, Heroku, DigitalOcean, whatever you want. You structure your site your way. Remember that when you choose a cloud service, that every time you produce an app for me, whether it's here, whether it's advanced graphics, whether it's whatever, you have a choice of using the same site you're going to build, almost like a portfolio of your work, that I can access. And you can use different sites. We'll talk about how to do that maybe a little bit today if we have a chance to get to it, or next week. Okay, and then submitting your work, an external document, which is this one. We haven't finished talking about it all. Right, so version history, and again, you would need some stuff. There's some sections in here that you see that I didn't ask for, like game mechanics. And I get this stuff back too. I get game mechanics, and then how does your game work? I get that exact same thing back. Please, if I haven't asked you for it, do you know what I want you to do? Did I ask you for game mechanics? Let's see. I don't think so. So internal document, external, company logo, table of contents, version history, game description, but no game mechanics. What does that mean? That means I want you to do this. Right? Get rid of it. I don't want to see game mechanics in your document if you don't have it. Get rid of camera too, because you don't need that. Hold on a second. You don't need controls, and you don't need saving and loading, because you're not doing that with this. And you're not doing, well, I haven't asked for an interface sketch for this one, and there really isn't a big one. One thing that you might want to do when you talk about your game itself is, and some people do this for bonuses to make the external document more effective. I'm just going to close this down here, not save. Is they include their version of this. They almost give you this sketch of what their storyline is going to look like. That's acceptable if you wanted to add that in for additional marks. I would give you a bonus if you did that. And actually, it might be good practice for you to sketch out what your story is going to look like. And how do you do that? You need a tool for that, right? So again, there's some tools online that I recommend. I always have a bunch of tools and links online that you can go to. It's all around mind mapping. I think there's some really cool tools out there that allow you to mind map. And one of them is called bubble.us, bubble.us. Okay, so let's go there and see if you can get to this. Try this out. Hopefully they didn't stop producing, their site's not down. There it is, bubble.us, BUBBL.us. And if I start brainstorming, right, what do I mean by that? You get this. Start here. So I notice how I can zoom in and out. And this is the initial cave, right? So if I was going to do the dragon game, this is cave 1, and maybe you can go kind of go right or left, right? And then more details. You can put as much details as you want. And then you can draw. I can add additional nodes in here. So if I want to pull this one up, I can add an additional node in here that kind of pulls in there, and I can say this is cave 2. Kind of thing. And maybe up here again, I can add in another cave. Here's cave 1, right? And so on. And then you can start describing in here with more descriptions and a little bit more than just right or left, what your game is about. And you can kind of sketch this out. I recommend this for you, whether you include it in your external document or not. It's good for you to plan out your story before you make it, before you actually do any kind of coding whatsoever, right? Because remember, there's 2 elements of this. I have to make a story, and I got to code my story. I got to add code around my content, if you will, right? So it's a good thing to have some kind of tool to help you sketch out, as an example, how your storyline is going to work, right? So maybe I have a couple of nodes here. I'm just making this up, by the way. I'm just going to kind of add my structure, right? And you can see how it's not that difficult, and it's an online tool. And I mean, it's going to ask you to log in and pay and blah, blah, blah. Here's some pricing. But what can you do not to pay? Screenshot. Right? So, it's not like you can't do that. Just try and make it so that you can see everything, right? And it's kind of a good thing to give these guys some props. So when you if you do include this in your external document, say, hey, got this, made this thing with bubble.us, right? Notice how this is, how many decision levels we have here. So this is 1, right or left. This is 2, right or left. And I haven't made 3. 3 would be if I did this. So I have another one here, and it's going to ask me to save. And thank you very much. Don't show me this again. And right or left. And here, this one here is right or left. Notice I'm just making them empty right now, right? Right or left. Here we go. And here's the other one over here. And you can see that it's like a tree, right? That's what we're kind of doing, right? So we're kind of adding in, why aren't you communicating and do what I want you to do? There you go. And there we go. And you can see that I can quickly make my decision tree the way I want. And this is probably the first step. If you're a planner, or if you sketch out your story, even if you're doing a real story in real life, I do a lot of this kind of stuff where I have, I kind of sketch out what I'm doing. Here's what, you want to be careful of. And by the way, notice how there's like 1 decision level, 2 decision levels, 3 decision levels with 8 outcomes here, right? And let's say this one is the winning outcome, this one. So this is your path of positive outcomes right here. Because it's going to go from here to here to here and then to here. You won, right? It's fixed. Here's what people do that really freaks me out, right? They do one of these. They go, "Oh, that's good. Let's have another one." What is that? What did that just do? Right? Hold on. And then I want to add more. I want to add some, other paths. And you can see where I'm going with this, right? I'm going to add more, and then maybe another path like this. Make it really complex and crazy. And I make a node from here to here, and this moves over here, and this crosses over here, and then finally you get to the point where you want to tear your hair out, right? Please don't go too crazy. And people say, well, can I go deeper than this? You can go as deep as you want, man. But at the end of the day, you're just going to kill yourself. This is 10% of your final mark. This is not 80% of your final mark. Please don't spend 80% of your time on this, right? Okay, so you can use this as well for planning. I recommend it. I'm not going to force you to do it, and I'll give you bonus marks for it, right? So if you put it in your external document, you'll get a bonus mark, okay? Sketch it out and then put it together. Some people asked last time, how about if I just like drew it out on paper and put it on the document? I would even suggest, I would even recommend that. Like anything, any kind of plan of what your story is going to look like is a good plan, because that means you're planning ahead. You're actually thinking about what your game is going to look like and all this kind of stuff. It's a good thing. Okay, so that's one of the things that you can also do to improve your mark. Okay, so I've got my external document done, and it's my internal documentation is taken care of, and I've deployed to GitHub on a cloud service. I'm ready to go. And what do I hand in? I need my external document in a MS Word or PDF. Please don't give me open document format. That would be bad, right? Because sometimes those get corrupted on Dropbox, just FYI. And please don't embed your external document within your file somewhere deep, like where I have to really look hard to find it, right? Make it a separate document. Like you can make as many submissions, not just one document or one zip file, but a bunch of different things. A link to your external files on GitHub. Well, in Dropbox, you need to include this link somehow in a text file, right? You can't just put this in a comment typically, unless you've already given me this. So you give me this external document, and then in your comments, I'll link to your project files on GitHub. I need to know where that is, right? If you don't give me a link to your project files on GitHub, either here or inside your external document somewhere, I will not give you marks for it, even if you have it. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to go search around 40 people to find out your link to your site. I'm not going to do that. Give it to me, right? Same thing with your live site on a cloud service of your choice. I should say yours, not you, of your choice. So give me the link. Tell me where your site files are. Please don't make me look through your documentation to figure it out, okay? Like, give me those 3 things: the external document, a link to your GitHub, and a link to your live site, right? If you do that, it's good. So here's a bad thing. So let's say you don't hand in your external document. Your game works, but you don't hand in your external document, you lose. Just going to put it out there for you so you see the thing, right? You lose 10 marks just right off the top because there's no external document, let's say, if you don't put it in. And you don't give me GitHub somehow, and you don't deploy to a cloud service. You just give me your files and you say, but it works. Great. But you still lose 8 marks for that and 10 marks for your external document, which is 18 marks out of 52. That considerably drops your marks down. Even if your site is awesome, I can't give you perfect, and I won't, right? So please don't do that. There's a lot of little piece parts to this whole thing, and so try to get her done as much as you can. Okay, cool. Questions around this beast? It's not a big, actually, it's really not a difficult assignment, honestly. I'm going to give you a lot of the code. We're going to work it together, right? So it's not like you're going to have to build your own code on your own and try and figure it out. We're going to work it out together. You're going to figure it out with me, right? That's one thing, the good thing. The pieces that you should start working on right away is your external document, set up your Git repository. Like right there, setting up your Git repository and putting something on there, 2 marks for nothing, right? External document, start structuring your site files, all that kind of stuff. Prepare yourself. Start working on these things ahead of time, right? Okay. I'm going to keep going because we're kind of 4:15 right now, and then stopping there's no point. Okay, so let's keep going with this one and see what happens. So I've asked you to deploy on a service, and there's a couple of services that I recommend, and one of them is Microsoft Azure, right? So if you look at Microsoft Azure, and again, who's taking COMP398? If someone's taking emerging technologies, if you're taking emerging technologies, taking emerging technologies too, and there might be some other people there as well. That means you already have probably Microsoft Azure. You're probably going to deploy on Microsoft Azure anyway, right? So get it. And how do you get Microsoft Azure? This is where, all information about Azure, as an example. You can get it through DreamSpark, and it takes a little bit of time. So if you go to dreamspark.com, okay, dreamspark.com, it's free for students. As long as you're a student, you have access to cloud services through Microsoft. So you go to DreamSpark, you go to students, okay? You go to software catalog. All right? And I'm gonna leave this for you to do. This is a to-do for you, right? And you can't come out. It won't work today. It's gonna take some time to do it, all right? And you could probably make it work today, but for the most part, some people may have issues with this because they don't follow instructions carefully. So here's my instructions for DreamSpark. If you want to make this Microsoft Azure for DreamSpark work for you, this is where it is, right? You need to sign up and create your DreamSpark account, okay? You might say, well, hold on, Tom, we already have a DreamSpark account. It's E5 on the hub, blah, 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 and that's where I get my DreamSpark account. And it might look like DreamSpark for Centennial, which is Microsoft DreamSpark. You might have seen it as this. This is not where you need to go. This is where you can get a lot of software and stuff, but this isn't the place to sign up for Azure. Okay, so it's not this, right? You go to dreamspark.com, like I said, go to that site, you're gonna sign up for that. Before you sign up for DreamSpark, you need to have a Microsoft account, Hotmail, Outlook, whatever it's called now, Outlook.com, Microsoft, Hotmail.com, whatever, Live, I think it's a live.com domain as well. Get a Microsoft account, separate from your school account, okay? So when you sign up for DreamSpark, the main communication account you're gonna give them is the new Microsoft account you have, okay? Don't give them the main communication as your school account. Why? DreamSpark will not work with your school account, okay, Azure. So please don't give them that. If you give them that, you're gonna go through this process, and what's gonna happen is Azure is gonna say, sign up for Azure and give me your credit card. And that's what it's gonna ask you to do. If it asks you for your credit card, you've made a mistake, all right? It's gotta ask you for DreamSpark. If you see dreamspark.com, sign up for that subscription, you're good. That's the way to do it. So you do this, you sign up for this piece, and then when this is done, this register now will be active. My recommendation to you is before you register now, you go into an incognito window so that it doesn't remember that you're logged in with your student ID. Follow my instructions and you will be okay, right? And then register now. It'll register you properly and you'll have access to DreamSpark. It'll confirm verify your registration and you're good, okay? Yes, you can do it now, but it's gonna take time. Go ahead, right? And it's gonna look different for you than for me, okay? Because I'm a teacher, I'm not a student. Okay, so then after you sign up for DreamSpark, you've got your account and everything else and you're registered, you're gonna go to portal.azure.com. Remember, this is being recorded, so you can always go and check this out. You're gonna choose your Microsoft account, not your, and you're gonna do this in probably in incognito mode. Please do it in incognito mode. If you do it in, and who does not know what incognito mode, what am I talking about? Please put up your hand if you do not know what that is. I've had that question before. Tom, what's incognito mode? You guys are developers and you don't know what incognito mode. If it's okay if you don't know, right? It means that you have to go to Google Chrome, right click, and then new incognito window. That's what I'm talking about, right? So you go there, all right? If you do it with your regular Chrome, Firefox, what have you, that's okay, but the challenge is it'll remember that you're a student, that your student account, and when you log into DreamSpark and to this, it'll say, oh God, no, it's bad. You're still, at some point, you have to verify yourself as a student. So it's gonna ask you for your student email. That's when you give it to them. Okay, not what you don't sign up as with your main communication account with your email at school. If you do, it's a problem. And what if some person put up their hand and says, I don't have a cell phone. Microsoft's going to verify who I am with a cell phone. I don't have a cell phone. You don't? Who doesn't have a cell phone, right? Because you're going to have to verify yourself with a cell phone. All right, just left FYI. Twice, one for your Microsoft account and one for your Azure account. Okay, they're totally different. Okay, cool. And if you already have a Microsoft account, you can certainly try and use that one. And if you're concerned, you know, oh, Microsoft's going to bombard me with email, make a dummy account. It's okay. Microsoft's going to give you another one, right? Just verify yourself with your darn phone, right? Okay, so you're on here, and then you're going to go to portal.azure.com. It doesn't know who I am. See, it doesn't know who I am. And I log in for the first time with my Microsoft account, not my school account. Please don't do that. And then when I do, it's going to look and see what my it's looking for my domain. It's my Hotmail domain that it's seeing, and I'm going to log it in here, right? So I'm going to say, okay, well, here's my password. I've signed in for two-step authentication, and for you guys, some of you, especially if you use Hotmail or Outlook or whatever online, even Gmail. Nowadays, if that's your primary account and do anything like any banking with that or any kind of important stuff, get yourself an authenticator on your phone, right? And you can use two-step authentication, not just your password, but it's going to give you a number that's changing, and it's just changed. So I'll put it in, and it's always going to change. So it's an extra piece of insurance for you to kind of verify that it's who you are. And never remember who you are on a site, right? Remember your password. Don't let the site remember who you are, because that's bad. Okay. So anyway, so you log into Azure, it looks like this. It looks like you have a crazy, you're flying a plane here, this dashboard. You have a lot of choices, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm just going over, I'm just overviewing it for you, okay? This is not the first time or the last time I'm going to show you this. So please, if you don't have to, you know, you don't have to see this and then try and remember it all right? I'm going to click the plus button here, okay? When I click the plus button, right, it's going to take me to some choices, like, for example, web and mobile. So that's the kind of application I'm creating, right? And under web and mobile, I want to choose web app, right? Web app. If when you choose web app, it takes you to this type of screen, it looks somewhat like this, you're good, you signed up properly. If it takes you to a sign up screen, something went wrong, right? Because you shouldn't sign up, you've already signed up. And if you do sign up, if you click sign up, it should ask you to sign up with your DreamSpark account. If it asks you for a credit card or pay as you go, something's wrong. You didn't do it right. You didn't follow my steps, and you know you've got to it's not the right thing to do. Please do not sign up with your credit card. If you sign up with your credit card, something's wrong. All right, all of you, because your students have free access if you sign up properly with Microsoft. Okay, and it's really cool because Microsoft gives you you can create WordPress sites. You can make websites to practice on. I don't want you to launch your site up on the school server. So I don't want it to go to student web, okay? That's not where I want it to go. It's got to be on Azure, Heroku, some kind of cloud service like DigitalOcean somewhere. Please don't put it up on GitHub Pages. That's not a cloud service, okay? And GitHub Pages, they don't allow you to do too many of those. Okay, so again, there's your web app. And I'll show you how to set it up later on, but you can do continuous deployment to your web app. We're not going to get there today. I'm just showing you how to test to see if it's ready. That's one. I highly recommend Azure because it's part of our ecosystem. If you're going to take COMP398 as an example, which is emerging technologies, you're probably going to learn about Azure. If you're going to take my advanced graphics course, you're probably going to do deployment on Azure too, right? So it's going to help you, right? But let's say if you don't want to do Azure and you want to do another cloud service, there's another really good one called Heroku. dreamspark.com. Again, it's not as big as it's not platform as a service as big as Google Platform or Amazon Web Services. It's not that big. These are smaller services now. But if you're doing a node site, it's actually very easy to set up your stuff with Heroku. I'm going to talk about Heroku later on. I'm not going to detail it here, but this is another one. The other one that I recommended on the document is DigitalOcean. Right? DigitalOcean is a Toronto-based provider, actually based out of here, and it's $5 a month to create your own Linux box. Right? A virtual box that you can create, that you can kind of make your own server on. If you're someone who wants to challenge themselves and set up their own Linux environment, your own Nginx server or something like that, DigitalOcean is the way to go, right? It's $5 a month. There is no, I don't believe you get free services here unless you go back to DreamSpark, right? Here's another way you can do this. You want to get some free services on DigitalOcean, go to DreamSpark. That's what I always do, right? Go to DreamSpark and get the developer pack, right? Get the student pack, which is this one, GitHub for Education. So I'm going to scroll up so you can say GitHub for Education, this piece, right? So if you get this pack, right, this gives you a bunch of little things, right? And again, this is free for all students, right? So if you click on Get Your Pack, you get the following. You get a hackable text editor for the 21st century, Atom, right, for free. Amazon Web Services, you know, you get some free credits for Amazon Web Services if you want to use that. Bitnami to set up your Nginx server up on in DigitalOcean. Crowdsourcing with Crowdflower. You get DigitalOcean $50 credit for DigitalOcean, right? If you want to, you know, set up for new users, that's like 10 months, $5 a month, right? $50 a month, $50 total, 10 months of DigitalOcean for free, right? You get from GitHub, you get 5 free repositories, 5 free private repositories for GitHub, right? For signing up for this. You also get a free domain for Namecheap for a year and an SSL certificate, which is kind of cool, right? You can relay emails through SendGrid if you want to do that, if you want to create an email relay service, right, for yourself. And you can also download and install Unreal Engine, and there's some stuff to do that for free. If you're a gaming student, you can get Unreal through this portal as well, although you can always get it on your own. All right, so crazy stuff that you can get for free here on DreamSpark, and all you need to do is sign up. Please sign up with your Outlook account or Live account or Hotmail account. Please do not sign up for this DreamSpark stuff that I'm showing you here with your student account. You use your student account to verify that you're a student, and once you've done that, you're good. You're signed up for dreamspark.com, not E5 on the hub, which is where you normally get your software. Okay. Okay. Any questions around this stuff? DreamSpark. Okay, so it's part of our learnings this semester, and it's going to be impacting other courses. So if you do this here, it's going to help you with the other stuff that you're doing in other stuff in your other courses. Like for example, your cloud course that you might be taking with our lady programmer friend, right? Who has her, right? We're talking about the our anyone have Lynn, right? For programming cloud services this semester. Maybe you had her last semester, but she's great as a teacher. She's awesome, and she does cloud services here at Centennial. Okay, so it kind of links everything together for you, is what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of minimize all this stuff and get into the programming side of the house. Let's see how we do this. So we need a template, right, to work from. And I have this thing here that I want to use online on GitHub called State Machine. So let's go find this thing, right? So if I go back to my GitHub, and this time you would look under Centennial. So if you look under Centennial, please go to Centennial College, right? Under there, if I look down at COMP397, because everything will be labeled COMP397 something, right? Notice how I have a phaser demo, phaser boilerplate, other kind of stuff we did, slot machines that we kind of put together last time, and a create.js demo, and a bunch of other stuff in here. And last year, I also came up with, I believe it's lesson 2, we started doing the state machine. And I'm just gonna go through here and make sure that this is the one, because I have, nope. Sorry, there is one that I want to direct you to, so that way we can start from there, because I don't want you to start from scratch. There's no point starting from scratch, because we're going to be working very hard to teach you the state machine. Yeah, here it is. So I'm gonna direct you to COMP397 lesson 3. So please pull this down from GitHub. Okay, COMP397 lesson 3. So you're gonna start with a bit of a base. And please don't say it's all about the base. I would kill someone for that last semester too. Okay, so this is a solution file, which means you can load it with your Visual Studio. So if you're someone who wants to use Visual Studio, you can certainly pull this down and you're ready to go. It's ready to go for you, right? I'm gonna use VS Code to make this work, right? Because why work hard? If it's already there, I can reshape this thing and I will put it up again, COMP397, it'll be winter 2016, and I'll make another repository for it, which will be just for VS Code. But this is the Visual Studio side, the Visual Studio 2013, 2015. This will work for you if you want to pull this down. So let's download this thing. I'm going to download this thing for myself and create a repository for myself online or afterwards. So I'm going to go on my desktop. I'm looking at github.com/Centennial College /COMP397-lesson3. Okay, so let's pull this up, COMP397 lesson 3, and I'll explain how this thing is formed. All right, because it's important to get us started with this thing. All right, so I download this thing on my desktop, and on my desktop now I have this COMP397 lesson 3 master, right? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't want master, so I'm gonna get rid of it. So if you're someone who's gonna do VS Code with me, follow carefully. If you're just someone who's gonna be Visual Studio, you're ready to go. You don't do anything, right? But if you're doing VS Code with me, this is how it would be. All right, so I'm gonna open this up in a folder. Notice how I have a folder, and inside the folder I have another folder, right? I need to extract this one, right? Because this is the folder I really want, not this one, right? If I'm doing VS Code, so I'm gonna pull this one out. And I'm gonna get rid of this one, because I don't need that one. Yay, now I have only one folder, not two, and I don't have my solution files anymore. They're gone, right? Stuff I don't need when I set up this, we're going to remove, all right? And I'm going to tell you what stuff I don't need in VS Code that we're going to make it a little bit lighter in here to make it go, all right? So let's check this out. First of all, let's see what I get if I just double-click on my index.html file. So I'm going to double-click on this thing, and what do I get? I get this, game starts, and I get nothing else. How come? Because you have to run create.js as a server, right? Otherwise, if I was to right-click here and use inspect, and if I go to console, then I'm going to get some errors where it says, file not found, I don't have a start button, right? It's going to look at users, Thomas, assets, images, start button, okay? And there is no users, Thomas, assets, images, start button. That needs to be fixed, right? So where do I get that? And how come it's telling me this? Because if I don't have a start button, then I'm not going to see anything here. So I got to fix that problem. You might have to fix that problem on Visual Studio Code too, but there's actually it should be okay. It shouldn't be absolute path anyway. Okay, that's one. So that's one of the errors I got, and so I can't click on anything because there's nothing that's here to click. But this is your first state, and we'll talk about this state. Okay. So let's bring up Visual Studio Code and drag and drop my project in there. So to show you what it looks like, so I'm going to take my project files that I have in here. And it's called COMP397 lesson 3. That makes no sense. Let's rename this thing to COMP397, and we'll call this winter 2016, and we'll call this state machine. So you guys can access it later on, and you'll see it. By the way, you can still use Visual Studio 2013, 2015, the one we're building, but it'll be we're going to bastardize this thing really good, right? Like we're going to really beat it up. All right. So here we go. Pull it in. And now I have access to my files here, all right, and this is right from GitHub, so let's take a look. So I have my assets, and inside there I have a start button and my next button and my back button. That's where this is my folder structure here, right? And in my content, I have my game CSS. Let's take a look at that. So just very simple gray background for my game. And for my canvas, because we're going to be using the canvas element with create.js. The canvas element in HTML5 is the main element that we're going to use to do 2D graphics, right? We're going to use create.js is going to allow us to access the HTML5 canvas in order for us to kind of produce our game, okay? I also included something called reset.css that resets all of our styles, so we don't have any extraneous styles from the browser. Because the browser, for those of you who know, produce browser styles, default browser styles, and we want to remove those when we make our game. So that's why we include reset.css. Okay, Properties. Well, this is good if you're using Visual Studio Code, but I'm sorry, Visual Studio, but I'm not using Visual Studio. I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I can get rid of this. I'm just going to delete this whole folder, the properties folder. Gone. All right. So too this other one, which is COMP397 lesson 3 CS Proj. It's not a C# project file, and I'm not going to use anything like this for my project. So I can get rid of this too. Okay, packages.config are all the packages that I loaded in through NuGet, right? So these are all the packages that I included through NuGet. You don't have to include this file anymore because NuGet's not going to be our package manager. We're going to use Bower. If we're going to use a front end, it's going to be Bower. All right, so let's get rid of this. Same thing with web config, and web debug config, and web release config. All those ones are for Microsoft Visual Studio 2013, 2015. We don't need them, so let's get rid of those two. I'm just slimming up my folder structure here. Stuff I do need. I do need my index.html, and I do need it to point to the right stuff. Notice how it points to my HTML document is structured in that the first piece of my documentation on the top, it's a basic document template, HTML document, and I'm pointing to my reset CSS, which resets all the CSS for my browser styles. And then I load up my game CSS, which looks at the canvas element. And remember, I told you the canvas element is where I'm going to house my game. So, and notice how in my canvas element, I have a width of 640 pixels and a height of 480 pixels. This element here, between these two braces here, notice there's nothing else in here, is where the game is going to live. All right, so in here. And I'm using this div tag to kind of center my whole game within it. Okay, here's my JavaScript libraries. I have something called a config.js file that I'm using, right? I'm also including jQuery 2.1.4 min.js, not because I really need it, but just because it's there. I don't really need this one. I'm also including my stats, kind of a frame rate stats, which I'm using, a frame rate manager here. And then all of these pieces here are all from the Create.js library, right? Create.js suite of libraries. Now notice that it is version 8.1, 6.1, 6.1, 6.1. The latest versions of Create.js are 8.2, 6.2, 6.2, 6.2. Not a lot of changes there. You don't have to upgrade. You can certainly do that. If you were to download and install Easel.js, Tween.js, Sound.js, and Preload.js from Bower, you would get the latest version, right? You don't have to, right? It's okay to leave us there. And let's take a look at this site here so to see where I'm getting, what are these libraries I'm talking about. So if I go to Create.js, right? And if I just search for that, it'll take me to createjs.com. And this is where all of our documentation is going to be for this semester, right? We don't need a book necessarily, right? We have a really cool, this website is really good with documentation. If I want to learn about Easel.js, which is where we're going to do a lot of our work, we click Easel.js. And we click on Docs for Easel.js. And inside of our docs, this is an API documentation site, right? You can see some examples of what Easel.js would look like. We're going to create a new template today just to try it out, right? We're going to kind of mute the stuff we have, right, after we create our state machine template, and we're going to load it up again, and I'm going to start from scratch with you guys so you can see how to build all that. We're still going to have all that extra code there so you can see examples of how we do things so that we don't like reinvent the wheel, but I want you to see how we can do this. Okay, so this is our Create.js website, and we're going to use this a lot when it comes to trying to figure out how to do things, right? Okay, so fine. So we include all these libraries. The Create.js library is made up of 4 different libraries. Easel.js that takes care of basic canvas operations within the browser, right? Tween.js, hint, this is a question on your test, right? Tween.js, which is where we do a lot of our animations. If we want to do animations, custom animations, we can tween, comes from the word in between, right? Different animations. We can create simple animations with Tween.js. Sound.js is where we're going to put is our HTML5 sound library, right? We can use that, and we can use Preload.js to preload our images, graphics and sound, right, as an example, before we use them. And preloading is a really great idea when we're making games, because I imagine if I have to keep on accessing the file system over and over again, my game is going to be really slow, right? If I load everything up first, you might have to make a little bit of a loading screen, but then I'm golden. I'm great. My game works perfectly, right? Okay, and then I have my game scripts. Notice that I include a couple of custom modules that we're going to be talking about how to make these, right? I have a label module and I have a button module, right? And then I have two states. I have my menu state and I have my game state. Remember we talked about making a state machine. So think about each state as a scene, so, or a screen, if you will, right? So my menu screen, that's a state. And when I move to my game scene, that's another state. And all I'm doing is doing this. Which state do I want to show? If I'm showing my menu state is in view. And then when I shift to my game, my menu is hidden and my game is being seen, and so on. We keep on going back and forth. We're going to talk about this a little bit more at length, so don't worry about that. So that's really your index.html in a nutshell. Notice also that I'm also loading or accessing on the onload function. So when this is finished loading, when the body's finished loading all this stuff and loads everything, then I access something, a function called init, my init function. So where would this function be? Well, it's going to be inside a folder called scripts, core. That's how I've structured my files, game.js. So let's look at that. So here's scripts. And notice I have a bunch of different folders here for my structure. A config folder where I have my config ts file. This is my config ts file. Hey, what do I have here? A bunch of constants. That's all it is. My menu state is like a constant 0. It's actually an enum. I can make this an enum in the latest version of TypeScript, right? My play state and my game over state. So 3 states. I also have my core folder where I have my core game script. Here's my game.ts file. And this is stuff we're going to modify today to make this a little bit more sexy, right? And here's my state machine. My state machine is just a switch statement that basically switches. It says, well, if I'm in my menu state, well then show my menu. And if I'm in my play state, then play the game, right? And if I'm in my game over state, well then give me a game over, right? So that's really my state machine in a nutshell. And we have to fix this because remember, look, I don't have a state for my play state, and I don't have a state for my game over state. I have to make those. We're going to do that today. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at my libs. My lib folder has all my libraries. Easel.js, my jQuery library, my preload, my sound, all that's in there already. You don't have to get it from Bower. It's already included in all this stuff. These are all the versions you need to make your little template run, okay? Inside my objects, I've defined 2 objects. One is a button. I've created a button library. Here it is. And it's giving me an error, and there's a reason for that. We'll get back to that in a second. And I also have a label. Here's a label. I've got some errors in here too. We'll talk about that. And I've got my states. I have my menu state right now. That's all I have, which is a bunch of errors too. Lots of errors in my state, right? So this is where we're starting off. And I also have a typings folder. Hey, there's my typings folder, right? Here it is. And my typings folder basically has all my type definition libraries. Here's my type definition library for my Create.js. Here it is for my Easel.js. What's a type definition library? Who knows what that is? So I've talked a lot. Anybody? No one knows what a type definition library is? Okay. Well, when we use TypeScript, remember we're using TypeScript for this instead of JavaScript. So let's go to typescript.lang.org. Remember, TypeScript is kind of a superscript of JavaScript that we're going to be using. In order for me to use TypeScript, right, and I want to use an external library, I have to include something called type definition library, type definition file. You can learn all about TypeScript online, and this is our handbook for TypeScript if you go to handbook. So you make your class, as an example, it might look like this. And then I want to create a type definition library for external files, right, as an example. And it tells you how to make type definition libraries down here, type definition files. And all it is all we're really doing with our type definition libraries, here's our writing.d.ts files. They're d.ts files, all they are, and they're just pointing. We're using the declare keyword to declare the classes that are part of our external library so that we can get code hinting for those classes. That's all they are, right? So we need type definition libraries if I want to use things like TypeScript with jQuery, or I want to use TypeScript to give me code hinting with my create.js library. I want to use TypeScript with 3JS because I'm doing 3D graphics. I want to use TypeScript with Node because I want to get code hinting from my Node.js because I get 0 when I do Node.js and on the browser, right? I don't get any kind of code hinting whatsoever. I want to use TypeScript with Angular because you know what? Angular and TypeScript, play really nicely together. I want to use TypeScript for everything, right? And the way to do that, of course, is to have these external libraries that describe what the classes are doing, right? Because you're not the creator of the class, someone else created the class, but you want to use them and you want to get code hinting for each of these libraries. And that's the state of affairs when it comes to JavaScript, because JavaScript, it's not like all your libraries are in one place. It's not like you have access to every single library on the web. If you're running C# or Java, you have access to most of your libraries right here. You just have to include them, pretty much. You can also download and install other ones. But for the most part, C#, you're good. I mean, you got everything you need. You just have to include it. And same thing with Java or with C++ even. A lot of the libraries are, they're part of your IDE. They're there, right? Not so with JavaScript. With JavaScript, you have to download them from the web and include them. And in so doing, we also have to create type definition libraries for them. Okay, so that's what those typings are. If you look at our folder and you see typings, that's where they all are. One change we have to make to this to make it workable, right, on the VS Code side, is we need to have a tsd.d.ts file that we have to create. All right, so let's do that now. So I'm going to kind of go into typings. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to make a new file, and it's going to be tsd.d.ts. For those people who were not here last week for some reason, and this is your first week, who's here for the first time today, right? So you got a couple people the first time today. I've downloaded and installed VS Code. That's what you have to do. So if you haven't had a chance to download and install VS Code, or if it's in the machine in front of you, get VS Code going. Go to my GitHub, grab my files. That's the first thing I want to do. And in my tsd.d.ts file, what I want to do is I want to reference some of these other files, but I've already done that. And I mean, the quick way to do that is to drag this create.js lib.d.ts file in here. So that's the typical thing that we would do if we're using Visual Studio. I can't do that. I have to go up a step, so I'm going to have to create a reference path. And this is the syntax for the reference path that you're going to type, okay? And after I'm done, if you can't follow along, don't worry. I'm going to put this up on GitHub, right? So you always have access. So // I'm going to type in reference path equals to, notice I'm getting an error because it's not knowing what the reference path is. I'm going to go into create.js, right? create.js-lib first. Here it is. And then inside there, I'm going to include create.js-lib.d.ts and then close it off like that. Now notice that I'm not getting an error anymore because I have the proper path relative to my tsd.d.ts path, right? Notice also, if I just leave this, I'm going to save this for a second, and I'm going to go back to my game.ts file, which is in my core. And notice how in my game.ts file, I have all these reference paths, right? Well, for these ones, these in typings, I can't use these. How come I can't use these? Because they're wrong, right? But I could go in here and grab this thing, copy it, because it's almost identical, and just remove typings and the dot from it, and then I have my path, right? I could do that because that's really the path that I'm looking for. So instead of typing it, I'm showing you the syntax if you want to type your own, but really what I want to do is it's already there. Copy it from your game.ts path, go into your tsd.d.ts path that we just made. Here it is. And replace. So I'm just going to copy all over this, what I just did. But they're all going to error out because there is no typings, jQuery, blah, blah. I mean, I could go up and go back down, but why? All I have to do is one of these. So let's just get rid of this, get rid of this. So just get rid of typings and the dot, and then you're cool. So why am I making this file? Because I don't want to always have to refer to this file over and over again, right? I want to be able to just do it one time. And then these are all my libraries. right? My type definition path. And they're already there, right? So that's what my tsd.d.ts path does in my typings. Okay, first. Second, okay? Second, I want to go into my game.ts file, and now I want to reference all of these files again, but I only want to reference it one time. And I don't want to keep referencing my tsd.d.ts file. In my core, I want to make another file, a new file called underscore reference.ts, reference.ts, and I want to reference my tsd.d.ts file from here. And I've done this before in other classes, so I'm going to say / reference, reference path equals to, and then it's going to be, I'm going to go up to the, if I go up one from the core, I'm in scripts. I go up one into the root, so that's 2, and then down into typings. So I'm going to go 1, 2 up, and 1 down into typings. And then from there, I'm going to go into tsd.d.ts, and that's my path. Now, if it's wrong, if I've done it wrong, right, we'll see that it's wrong. It's going to, you see, I'm getting an error here, right, because it says file not found, right? Let's check out and see what I've done wrong. So here's my reference.ts path. I've gone up one to scripts. Oh, I don't have to go up 2. No, I do. I go up 1 to scripts. I go 1 up to the root, and I go back down to typings, right? Here's typings. Did I spell it wrong? And tsd.d.ts. And that should work. Just 1? Yeah. There we go. And now what I want to do is I want to create my, because I'm using TypeScript and Visual Studio Code, right? Remember what I have to do. I have to enable TypeScript. And how do I do that? I need a tsconfig.json file. So let's open that up. So in my VS Code, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to make a new file. And it's going to be called tsconfig.json. And in here, I need to add in some braces like this, and control space, and I want to go down to compiler options, and I want to create my compiler options for TypeScript. Because remember, I'm going to transpile. TypeScript doesn't run in the browser. JavaScript runs in the browser. So I'm going to write TypeScript, but it's going to transpile or transcompile into JavaScript. And the way to do that is to create my target, which is ES5, ECMAScript 5, and my module, right? Module, which is common.js. Notice how it fills it in. And then I also want to have a map file that I use for my source maps, which I'm going to set to true. So again, all I'm doing is setting up my compiler options for TypeScript. Remember the dependency you need in order for you to run TypeScript and transpile TypeScript inside VS Code. You need to have TypeScript installed in your command line, and it has to be of a version of 1.5 or greater, right? So if you don't have that, your transpilation won't work on, within VS Code. You have to do it manually, which is a pain in the ass. So you might as well go back and use Visual Studio 2013, 2015. It's easier. All right, that's one. The other one is, remember, how do I transpile with TypeScript in VS Code? Who remembers? God, you guys forgot everything from last week. I'm glad I didn't ask you this on the test. Yes. Control-Shift-B on Windows machines and Command-Shift-B on the Mac. All right, so Control-Shift-B. It's going to give me this little thing that says no task runner, created. I need to create a task runner, right? And what task runner is it kind of does the task for you. It does your transpilation task across your entire project structure. So let's click on Configure Task Runner. I don't need this side, and I don't need all this. Comments. All these comments are useless for me. So let's get rid of all this stuff. And you've seen this before if you've done this with me last week. And if you haven't, or if you don't remember, all I'm doing here is I'm getting rid of all this stuff, right? So that way I can configure my automatic transpilation, or to compile, if you will, compile TypeScript into JavaScript. That's what I'm doing. That's what this is doing. Every time I press Control-Shift-B on the computer, it'll transpile Command-Shift-B on the Mac. I don't need this hello world.ts. I'm going to get rid of this. Here's my hello world.ts. Bye-bye. Because there is no hello world, right? if I've set everything else properly and I've saved, I should be able to do a Command-Shift-B now, and it should transpile. Let's try it. So Command-Shift-B. And it's going to do its dance. And notice that inside my my scripts now, I should have 3 files for every TypeScript file. Here's my TypeScript file, here's my JavaScript file, here's my map file. Here's my TypeScript file, here's my JavaScript file, here's my map file. And I'm doing that because each one of these TypeScript files is going to require that. It won't do the same thing for my type definition library. So I won't do it for my tsd.d.ts file or for my reference.ts file. I won't do that. Here's my reference path. One more change to this. So I've done all this. I've got to make sure that in my core and my game.ts, I've got to take all this stuff out because I don't need all this now anymore, right? I want to keep this as lean as possible. And all of this, states and config and all that stuff, I want to put this in my reference.ts file. So I'm including config, my config module, my objects module. Let's copy all this. And it should be the same because we're in the same file, in the same folder. I can put it in my reference.ts file. And I want it to be after my typings. So can I have one of those? Why am I doing this? I want to keep all my references outside of my files. I don't want to see all this extra stuff because it doesn't make any sense it's not as clean when we look at it, right? So I'm cleaning up my stuff. On my game.ts file, I do need one, and I need to reference my reference path, right? So let's do that. So I'll say // here, and then reference path equals to, and then inside it's going to be underscore reference.ts, and then that'll close off. Okay, good. Now I've transpiled that. Okay, I've transpiled. So now I should be up to date. I'm going to create another, I'm going to connect to that repository we talked about, this new one that I'm going to make, right? It's going to be called COMP397 Winter 2016 State Machine. This is what we're going to start off with. Let's do that. So I'm going to go up into GitHub. This is how we do it, right? Here's my GitHub, Instantaneal. I'm going to create a new repository. And so you can reach it. So if you haven't been able to follow along because I've gone too fast or you don't understand, it's okay. You don't have to understand everything at this point. COMP397, Winter 2016, right? State Machine. And when I'm done, you'll have access to these files. Okay, cool. I've got my remote repository, but it's empty. I want to get there by doing all the stuff that it says here in GitHub, right? So let's do that. So these are all the steps that I need to take in GitHub. I'm going to go into here, and if you're connected properly, you should be able to go into the GitHub icon, and you should see initialize Git repository. At the school, I've been getting reports of people not being able to click this button because of firewall issues. They'll say it just won't work. So you can always do this on the command line, all right? Which I'm going to do right now, just in case you have a problem. I'm not going to show you that way. I'm going to show you everything on the command line. So in Visual Studio Code, you have 3 panes, right? Like I said last week, you have the first one, which is your buttons. This is your files. These you can search here. You can do your GitHub here, your version control. In the middle one, this is your project files, right? And in this one here, this is your editor, right? This is your editor where all the fun happens on this side, right? Okay, down inside the project files here, I'm going to right-click in the gray area, and I'm going to open it in Terminal on the Mac or in Command Prompt on Windows. This way, you don't have to swim to find where your files are. It goes right there. Okay, there it is. So notice how it says COMP397 Winter 2016 blah blah. In order for me to initialize a Git repository, I showed you this before, but I'll show it again. You have to do a git space init and press enter. Git init initializes the repository. It creates a hidden folder on inside your folder, your project folders, called .git. It takes that hidden folder and puts it there. And this is where the current state of all your files are going to be hidden. They're going to be put in there. That's the first thing. Next thing, I need to add everything to the staging area. So I'm going to say git add dot. When I say the git add command, what it does is says, hey, add this file or files to the staging area. Think about the staging area as just before I commit them to, to memory, if you will, or into my my repository. I used a very bad example this week. People got mad at me. I said, before you get committed to the asylum, you know, I got to name you, right? And people get mad at me, right? But basically what it is before you go to, you know, I've got all my files. They're waiting to be committed to GitHub, right? I stage them first. So they're in the staging area, in limbo. Right now, I've got, when I press this git add dot, okay? The next step I need to put is create a name for my snapshot. So I've got my files in a certain state. I want to take a snapshot of my current state of all my files, and I want to put them inside this invisible folder .git. Let's do that. So I'll say git commit. That's the command. -m for message, and I want to name my commit. It's going to be called initial commit. And I press enter. Now all these files, these 43 files, are going to go to GitHub, or sorry, Git, my Git repository, the invisible folder. Now this is all done locally here, so I haven't connected to the cloud yet. This is just me doing things locally in my own machine, so I'm not connected anywhere, right? Okay, that's number one. So I've done that piece. Now I've got to use the code that I get from my Git repository online, which is to add the remote. This is the remote repository, my cloud repository. Right here, I got to add this. I'm going to go back to terminal, and I'm going to paste it. So copy and paste, and press enter. So now that command, what it does is it creates a connection with GitHub in the cloud. So my local repository knows where to look, so I can push my local files to my remote files and on the cloud. If you don't do this piece, you can't use GitHub. Now I'm going to push. I'm going to say git push -u for unconditional origin master. And what this is going to do is going to take my local files and push them, upload them to GitHub into the cloud. Okay, you might have a step here that asks you to log in. It might say, hey, Tom, log in, if you've never done this before. You could certainly set up your terminal so it never asks you to log in again. And there's a way to do that through Google. Google it, please. You can set up your credentials, your GitHub credentials on your terminal, and create an SSH key so it never asks you to do that again. Just log in one time, and then it's always in if you want to. I'm not going to show you how to do that. That's outside of the realm of this course. You can always log in with your username and password every time. Okay, so I've done it. Now let's go back on GitHub and check it. I'm going to refresh on GitHub. So if you guys go on GitHub right now, you'll see the following new repository. Centennial College / COMP397 Winter 2016 semester state machine. Now this is for VS Code. Last time it was for Visual Studio, and I gave you that one already, right? Okay, cool. This is okay, but I want to add a README, right? So I'm going to click on Add a README file, and this is up on GitHub. I'm adding a README, right? So, and I'll say this. This is the COMP397 state machine templates for web game programming at Centennial. Okay, it's not complete, but we're going to make it complete. And I'm going to add another commit up here, commit new file. Okay, cool. I've added this README file, but I don't have it locally. How do I get it? Well, I go into my command prompt or terminal, and I do a git pull, and it's going to pull down that file into my code, right? So now I'm in sync with what I got up online. And I can also see it inside VS Code. If I look at README, my README file, it's right here. Right? So my local files and my remote files, they're at the same space, the same time. When I do a feature, if I add something new, if I change something here locally, as soon as I'm done changing things successfully, I want to push it to the remote. I'm going to push it to the remote. Okay, let's check this out. Let's see that I'm right. Okay, so here's my state machine, and let's see that this thing works. How about that? Let's see if I still get errors in my scripts. So I'm going to go to my game.ts. Do I get any errors? No. This is good. Now I was getting an error where I couldn't find my my files. So if I go to my game.ts file, and I'll explain all this in a second, it was looking for a button. It was looking for a button, and notice how it's looking for my start button. That's cool, my start button, but I don't have any kind of reference to my start button anywhere. Well, where did I do that? If I go up on my button class, let's take a look at my button class for a second. So I'm going to go Objects, Button. Notice how I'm directly accessing my assets, images, path string. So if whatever I want to look for, it's going to find in my assets directly. this is not a relative path. This is a direct path, if you will, right? Be careful. This is hard coded here too. This is not what I want to be doing. I put it up here as an example of how we're going to fix it, right? Okay. So how do I find this? If I go up to, I'm going to go up to assets and then images, path string, and then whatever the ping is. And path string I'm going to pass into, I'm going to pass in a path string into my button class when I instantiate my button. Okay, so let's take a look at how I do that in my game. Don't worry if you can't understand everything yet. We'll get there. Notice when I instantiate my button, and that would happen in my game state, right? Or in my menu state, I'm going to instantiate my button. So where is my menu state? Well, it's here, right? So I'm going to go into my states menu. And here's my menu state, and I'm looking for my start button. So it's going to go up into assets, look inside images, look inside my start button, and it's going to be start button.ping. That's what I'm hoping. Well, let's see. I got to make sure that that path is correct, or else it's going to be all messed up, right? Okay, well, let's run this thing and see what I get and see if I can fix my pathing, because it's got to be the right path when I do this thing, all right? Otherwise, I'm in trouble, right? It's not working properly. So here's where where I caution you, okay? In order for everything to work properly for CreateJS, you need to run this on a server. And remember what I asked you to do last time. I asked you to get HTTP server. That's one of the NPM modules. So let's clear the screen. And let's download NPM through HTTP server from NPM. It's a small server you can download through NPM. So NPM, right, install HTTP server -G for global. And if I enter that in, it's going to download my new NPM module on the global namespace, which is my new HTTP server. Now, I've already done that, and it looks like this. If I run HTTP server, I get this. And I have to do this in my folder, the folder that I want to run, right? So notice how it gives me a path of 127.0.0.1. That's localhost. Localhost 8080 is what I'm running my file. Let's see if that's going to solve my problem, because sometimes it does. So I go back into here, and I go to localhost 8080, and I pull it up, and I see my start button. Oh, right? Here's my start button. And notice when I click onto it, right, it says clicked, right? That's good. That's a good sign, right? The start button changed to click. So that's my first state. That's my menu state that I've created, right? And we're going to create other states, right, in this thing that we're doing. Notice on the top left corner, I have this little tool that I got from the same people that make 3JS. They make this thing called stats, right? And these stats tell me that I'm running at about 59 frames per second, which is pretty darn good, right? Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to stop now, but let me do one more thing before I stop. I want to deploy to Azure because I'm crazy, right? I want to deploy to Azure because I don't show you the full round trip, you won't get it, right? So how do I deploy this thing to Azure? Well, it's not anything but an index.html file. There's nothing special about it. I've got a bunch of libraries that have linked onto it, so I should be able to deploy it to any web service that I want to. How? Like this. First of all, I have to go into Azure. So let's go into my portal Azure, right? And again, I'm going to use an incognito window for that. So I'm going to go to portal.azure.com. And again, you don't have to remember this, but if you signed up for Azure, oh no, it's going to ask me to log in again. I won't do it that way. Hold on. So I don't want to do that yet. Portal.azure.com. Because I've already done this stuff that you're supposed to do, right? So it gets me in there, and I log in. There we go. It takes me in, and then I want to create a new web service, right? A web app, right? So I'm going to go click plus. I'm going to go to web and mobile, and I want to go to web app. And what I'm really doing here is I'm creating a container for my website, right? My website needs some place to live. It has to live somewhere, right? I can't kick off a website unless I have a container to hold it. And this is what I'm doing here on Azure. So I need to make a unique name for my website. And just to keep it simple, I'm going to keep it the same as my name. So COMP397, and we're going to call this Winter 2016, and then state machine. So all lowercase. So notice that's a unique name across all Azure websites in the world, right? Because it's a funny name, right? It's not really user-friendly, but you can get to it, right? My subscription is pay-as-you-go. Your subscription will be DreamSpark. If you've seen anything else other than DreamSpark, something's wrong. Don't do pay-as-you-go. That's credit card stuff, right? I'm going to accept my default resource groups and my default app service plan and click Create. And then it's going to do its little deployment dance, okay? So Azure is going to go up online. It's going to create a container for my files. Notice I've already done this with 3JS, so I apologize to those people who have me again for advanced graphics. You've seen this already, but that's a good refresher for you too. You're seeing it twice, right? So you know how to do this stuff already. You're going to be an expert, right? If you're here in both those classes. So it's going to go up, and when it's finished deploying, it's going to create a space for my files. I don't have my files there yet, right? It's just a space for my files, a container. And it's going to take me to this screen, okay? Again, remember, this is all recorded, so if you can't follow along, not to worry, right? All right, so I'm here. I'm going to do something called continuous deployment, and I'm going to get all my files from GitHub. So I've already got my stuff up on GitHub. I don't want to use FTP ever, right? FTP is dead for me, all right? I don't use that. I use GitHub deployment all the time whenever I do my new stuff, right? For the old stuff, sometimes I have no choice. I have to use FTP, but FTP, I don't like it, right? I'm going to scroll down here on the right until I get to publishing. And there's an option for continuous deployment. I'm going to click this. It's going to ask me, what do I want to do? I want to link to my GitHub, right? Now, if you've never done this before, it's going to ask you some questions. Do you give authorization for Azure to link to GitHub? My answer is always going to be yes, of course. So here's my source, GitHub. Here's my authorization. And now I want to select which organization. I have a couple of organizations that I use. I'm just going to use Centennial, that's the organization I want to use, right? And under Centennial, I want to choose my project, which is State Machine, right? The one I just made. So I want to go there, and I want to go to this one. Here's my State Machine, and click that one. And now underneath this, I want to choose my master branch. Now, I'm not going to talk about different branches here in this course. It's out of scope. You can have many branches, almost like subfolders for your project. But for me, I'll accept master. When I press OK, now it's going to do its continuous deployment. So it's going to go to GitHub, because I've given it permission, and it's going to take those files, download them into that container I created, right, and deploy my website, right? Every time I make a change now on GitHub, Azure is watching that website, my GitHub, and it'll automatically redeploy onto Azure, which is really cool. That means I'm always live. Every time I make a change, boom, it's live. All my changes are live on GitHub. So if you guys want to watch what I'm doing, and you want to test to see that your site stuff looks like mine, and you want to see a good example of how it works, you can look at GitHub for the site files, and you can look at Azure to see what it looks like live, right? Now look, it's not done. It's still doing, it's still doing this little dance that it's doing right now. It's kind of updating or building my deployment here on Azure. Whoa, it says it's done. Let's check it. You check it. Go to http://COMP397-W2016 for winter 2016 semester /state machine, all lowercase, .azurewebsites.net. And then I'll show you what that looks like. And if everything goes well, you should see this. That's the link, right? If I click start, I got a little button and it's clicked. You should see that too. When if you click start, it'll work. Yay. So what this has done is, here's what I'm doing. I've tested, I know that my Create.js library is working. I know that my custom button that I wrote, which I'm going to go into detail with you guys about, and the second half of today, I know it's working. I know my label, it's working. I know my config is working. I know my game.ts is working. Everything is working up to now. So if you're with me and you're here like this is a great start for your assignment number 1. Okay, and we're going to build on this thing until you can have 3 states: your menu state, your game state, and your game over state. We're going to do that if I can today. I'll try and do it today. Let's take a short break. When we come back, quiz time. All right.